Hey guys, what's up? It's Finch here. We're back for another Metagame Monday. First off, I want to address some important matters pertaining to the channel. I'm going to be uploading just a bit less this week as I'm on a new computer, and as you probably can tell, my voice sounds a bit different due to the lower quality of the computer mic. I'm still in the process of acquiring a new mic. In fact, I just made a purchase over the weekend, but it's going to be 7 to 10 business days until it comes in, so hopefully that will work out. But in the meantime, I'm just going to be rolling with this. It's not going to be quite as crisp as normal, but we're going to get through it, and I'm still looking forward to providing content for you guys, so I hope that's okay. In addition, this is going to be a slightly more brief, but equally important to other Metagame Monday. Okay, and that is because we're going to be discussing heavy duty boots, which is one of the best items and options in the metagame right now. And in addition to that, I just want to say I'm going to try to get some ulti laddering up. I got UU Rex, but I had to do it on the side. I ended up finishing 28 and 2, which was pretty slick. Maybe I'll bring some replays from that if you guys want. Let me know in the comments below. And yes, Metagame Snake Draft is right around the corner too. Week 1 just went up, and I'm playing Dice, a really great player and friend of mine, week 1. So looking forward to that. And yeah, there's just a ton of fun stuff going on. Unfortunately, I'm a bit limited due to the computer situation. As you can hear, my voice just isn't the same as before, but hopefully you guys can hear this all as well, and we're going to be able to proceed accordingly. But anyway, so I want to discuss the item Heavy Duty Boots for this Metagame Monday. That item basically negates all hazard damage. So if you slap it on a Volcarona and Stealth Rocks up, instead of taking 50%, you're taking nothing. If you slap it on something like Blissey, then can be able to pivot in and out of special attacks effortlessly without taking hazard damage, which is really cool. It has so many practical applications, and I'm going to be going over the big 12, I guess the 12 most common heavy-duty boots users in the SSE metagame. I split it up into both offensive and defensive ones, and I just want to note that this is not a split in terms of viability. Otherwise, we'd probably see Dragapult, Zero, or Volcarona in the top 3, followed by Kyurem, Togekiss, and Gyarados respectively. And defensively, we'd probably see Blissey, followed by Rotom, Heat, Slowbro, Mandibuzz in some order, and then Gastrodon and Mantine in the end. But we'll get to that later. There are also some fringe picks that I want to discuss. I decided to throw in 6 extra Pokemon that do have some shred of viability right now with heavy-duty boots, but ultimately I prefer other items in the case of Chandelure and even Weavile, or are just not very good options in the metagame right now due to inconsistency, or there being superior alternatives that are found within the metagame as it is. All in all, I want to say that heavy-duty boots has changed the way not only that we play, but also we team build. It's made it so that we have to rely less on hazards or rely more on support with hazards, such as having knockoff users or things like corrosive gas on Weezing. Because of that, it really made there a larger opportunity cost behind running strategies that rely on hazards to make damage and progress in games. And that also means that we're seeing more of a shift towards bulkier win conditions and more direct offensive pressure on hyper-offensive teams as opposed to stacking hazards. Of course, things like Lead Excadrill, Lead Mew, etc. are still very viable, and Stealth Rock is near mandatory on balanced and bulky offensive teams as well. You also see things like spikes on Skarmory or spikes on Ferrothorn that are prevalent, and toxic spikes on Toxapex as well. However, with the abundance of heavy-duty boots users plus defog users that are common like Corviknight, Mandibuzz, Mantine, Rotom Heat, Rapid Spin Excadrill, etc. that are able to remove hazards, it does simply mean that it's going to be less convenient than it was, say, in Generation 5 before Defog came out, or even in Generation 6 and 7 when Defog was out, but heavy-duty boots were not an item in the game. Because of that, it really changes the way that we approach things, and I want to highlight the trickle-down effect it's had on team building, if you will. It's made it so that these Pokemon are all more common or more viable than they might have otherwise been, but in addition to that, it's also made it so that hazard setters might have a slight deduction in their overall viability. We might see a reduced viability because of that. Moreover, we might see other walls that don't carry hazards or might have been weak to hazards before also seeing more usage. Things like Slowbro, for example, which obviously didn't like things like Spike Ferrothorn in prior generations. However, this generation could switch in and out of that pretty effortlessly while also having Teleport and other things. So there's not only heavy-duty boots and hazard metagame infecting their viability. Things like Teleport on Slowbro or Sticky Hold on Gastrodon obviously is a big benefit to their viability, if you will. Now, these moves or abilities were there before. In fact, Sticky Hold did the same thing in prior generations, but now, meaning that you can't lose your heavy-duty boots makes Gastrodon permanently immune to hazards, which is amazing. As for Slowbro, Teleport now obviously has more new effects. It's basically a 4-second damageless U-turn. So on the dried baton pass, it's always going second, which is amazing for a defensive pivot with Regenerator. All in all, I want to say that heavy-duty boots did warp the metagame. It warped how we played, it warped how we built, it warped how we approached things, and it warped how hazards were used or potentially not used in a very noteworthy fashion in the metagame. and there are trickle-down effects that low-key, directly or indirectly affect the viability of every single Pokemon we see used in the metagame, and every single game we play is impacted directly because of this. However, it's not only that. There are so many things other than that changing, and because of that, it's hard to isolate Heavy Duty Boots as the be-all end-all to so many things. There's obvious conclusions to make, such as, something like Volcarona, which is 4 times weak to Stealth Rock, obviously got better with the addition of Heavy Duty Boots, because now, all of a sudden, you're like, wait a minute, Volcarona is just amazing. It doesn't take 50% every time it comes in, and now I see it sweeping so much more. Yes, that is the case. However, there are things that are less direct. For example, Pokemon like, say, let's go with, Okay, I'll give you an example. Let's go with Ferrothorn. Ferrothorn might not be used as much this generation as it was last generation. Why is that? Well, a lot of things are now immune to spikes that wouldn't be otherwise, or rocks that otherwise wouldn't be. But there's also the fact that there's competing grass types like Tangrowth and Amoonguss that might have a larger place in the metagame right now, or competing steel types like Corviknight and Skarmory that might have a bigger place in the metagame right now. And the fact of the matter is that while that's not capturing every single little bit of these Pokemon's viabilities, the pros and cons of them, it is noteworthy, and I need to highlight that before we go into this video, because I don't want you guys coming away with the conclusion that, all of a sudden, these Pokemon are now completely valid or invalid because of the presence of Boots in the metagame. Because quite on the contrary, that is not the case. It is a very major player in this dynamic, but it's not the be-all end-all, and I want to make sure you guys know that before we get into this. Anyway, now that we have, let's discuss the offensive options in the metagame. Again, Volcarona is the big one. It's really the leader of the Heavy Duty Boots kind of coalition of offensive options, if you will. I've just highlighted the 3 attack set because we're going over offensive options, but of course it could also run Substitute, Roost, Safeguard. I've even seen Rest, Fire Dance over Fire Blast, Giga Drain over Psychic or Bug Buzz. Could run Mono Attack, could run Flamethrower. You know, there are plenty of options. Hurricane on Rain, because why not, and so on and so forth. The point is that Volcarona is a great option right now, and you can't really go wrong with it. You just have to kind of fit the right one to your team. So if you're able to do that, then it's going to go a long way. And of course, it's almost always going to be using Heavy Duty Boots on a couple Sun teams with Hatterene or Xatu. I have seen Life Orb, and Life Orb, Fire Blast, and Sun's able to kill things like Blissey at +1, or maybe +2. It's ridiculous, basically, is what I'm trying to say. So yeah, of course, though, there are some other Pokemon that use it offensively as well. And you'll notice that next 2 are also weak to Stealth Rocks. And the first one's Gyarados, second one is Kyurem. Now Gyarados historically has been plagued by Stealth Rock doing 25% to it upon entry, making it so that it can't survive as many attacks and generate a sweep, as it does have decent overall bulk and a respectable typing if you're not facing something with an electric type move, as that's one of 2 weaknesses with Rock and, well, Freeze Dry, but you know. So yeah, I think that's noteworthy. It also has some nice immunities and resistances such as ground and fire and fighting and water and so on and so forth. And because of that, it gives Gyarados lots of setup opportunities. However, if it's only 75%, that's just not desirable. If you can have it at 100%, then you can get sweeps, or you could just get that initial kill and then Moxie turns it into snowballing into a sweep. So yeah, all in all, you can also run Earthquake over Bouncer Substitute, you can run Intimidate over Moxie for more setup opportunities and so on and so forth, but Gyarados definitely benefited from the presence of Heavy Duty Boots in the metagame. Unfortunately, it was a lot better during the Dynamax metagame due to having Max Airstream with Bounce, but it's still a viable option now, and I definitely would try it out on your more offensive builds. Next up, we don't have no, we have Kyurem. Sorry about that, I scrolled too far. People are using a sub-Roost Kyurem set. This is just a sample spread which outruns Excadrill, has the 405 HP, which lets you have 101 HP substitute. Technically 404 does that, but just odd numbers. Cool, kids get knocked off because it didn't take 1 less from Stealth Rock, so it can't 4-kill you. And then you pump Special Defense, so you could live 2 Moonblast from 0 Special Attack Clef, throw the rest into attack for Icicle Fear damage. This is a set that was really common in OLT. It's a great stall breaker. 48 Icicle Crash TP plus Sub Roost with pressure. It's just an absolute behemoth. It's so hard to kill for bulky teams, and it's going to last forever, so that's really cool. You, of course, can also run Metronome or even Leftovers over Heavy Duty Boots, but Boots have been used far and away more often than those two, although I think Metronome might actually be better, honestly, just because of the ability to switch in more easily, so yeah. Next up are 2 Pokemon that perhaps you don't picture as like your stereotypical Heavy Duty Boots users because they're not actually weak to Stealth Rock. However, they are offensive pivots and forms of speed control, and because of that, having Boots makes it very convenient as you're not pressed to click Defog or Rapid Spin every other turn in these games, but rather you can pivot around more freely without taking as much of a consistent damage flow from hazards. Because of that, Zeraora and Dragapult are both great options with Heavy Duty Boots. In particular, they run these options when they don't have a poison type on board to absorb toxic spikes, which is also annoying, but honestly, in general, even without that, you do see these Probably the most common option on both, especially Zero Aura right now. You've seen Life Orb sets in the ladder and even Magnet, but those are few and far between on higher ladder in tournaments, besides got 2-3 weeks of OLT. And as for Dragapult, of course you can run Specs or Life Orb with Dragon Dance, but besides that, on the pivot sets, you're not really seeing as much. You're not seeing as much of the spell tag or the leftovers, but rather you're seeing heavy duty boots used a ton, and this is why I personally love the mix set. I like Dragon Darts, Hex, Thunderwave U-turn, or Thunderwave plus Will-O-Wisp. I think that Thunderwave is really great for things like Clefable, and also, I guess, hyper offensive matchup as well. It's a bit helpful. Of course, you do miss out on hitting things like Excadrill and Rillaboom with Will-O-Wisp, but that's okay. Dragon Darts is great for chipping things like Blissey and also muscling past Volcarona, which Thunderwave is also huge for, and Hex is still great. This EV spread lets you kill Alakazam with Dragon Darts, and Hex is still going to do a lot of damage to things like Physical Defensive Clefable, which is the status quo due to Urshifu's place in the metagame. And finally, last but not least, as for offensive heavy-duty boots users, we also have Togekiss, which can run an offensive Nasty Plot set. I prefer Substitute over Roost, but you can run Roost as well. All in all, not taking Stealth Rock lets it come in more and take advantage of the situation more. Unfortunately, it's still kind of limited in setup opportunities, and things like the aforementioned Zero Aura or Excadrill can revenge kill it or put a stop to its setup sleeping opportunities, as well as Rotom Heat, which we're going to get to in a minute, but with that aside, it's still a great option. As for defensive users, they use it in a bit different of a fashion. While 3 of these Pokemon are still Stealth Rock weak, it's also true that getting these Pokemon in safely without taking hazard damage so they can consistently check the offensive Pokemon that mandate them being used to begin with makes it so that reactionary options like Blissey, Gastrodon, Mandibuzz, Mantine, Rotom Heat, and Slowbro are all simply put more accessible in the current metagame, and because of that, it makes Heavy Duty Boots a great option, and while it also benefits offensive things, as we said before, it benefits things defensively just as well too. Blissey is the big one, and perhaps the most common of the bunch right now, and that is because it has access to Teleport, and it can just switch in and out repeatedly. It's made it so that Chansey's virtually unused in the OU metagame right now, which is funny. And that aside, it's just really cool seeing Blissey kind of take the spotlight after Chansey's been around for generations 5, 6, and 7 in such a prominent role, whereas Blissey's been kind of waiting in the sidelines in UU or UUBL or whatever it might be. So yeah, I definitely quite like that. However, there are other Pokemon that use it too that lack Teleport. One of them is Gastrodon. Gastrodon might look weird with Heavy Duty Boots because wait, like it's immune, it's already taking reduced damage from Stealth Rock due to resistance, so why give it Boots? Well, think about it. With Sticky Hold, you aren't going to be subject to the shenanigans, like things like Trick plus Sticky Barber, Choice Scarf, Clefable, Knockoff from Toxapex and Ferrothorn, and so on and so forth. Your item simply cannot be displaced, so therefore with Boots, that makes it so that you're permanently immune to hazards, no matter what they try to do, unless you're able to change your ability somehow and then knock or trick you before you switch out. Because of that, it makes it so that no matter what spikes or toxic spikes or Stealth Rock setup, you're never taking damage. And for a wall that's already great against things like Rotom Heat, non-Grass, not Zero Aura. What else was I going to say? Oh, Volcarona lacking Giga Drain. It makes it so that it's a very practical option. And it honestly is able to check a ton of things because of that. It doesn't really have the limitations. You could switch in 1,000,000 times and take 0 damage unless they directly do it with attacks or status moves like Toxic or potentially getting a Scald Burn, as you can do that when a Sticky Bolt or Will-O-Wisp Burn. Because of that, it makes Gastrodon play in a totally different way than the old Storm Drain leftover set played, and I think it walls things in a very new meta kind of fashion. I think it's a really cool thing to exploit in the metagame right now. Next up, we have Mandibuzz. You can use whatever spread you want in it. Unfortunately, Mandibuzz has kind of fallen off a bit. It went from one of the best Pokemon in the Premier Defogger to just very distant second in line behind Corviknight, but with that said, Mandibuzz is still great. Foul Play, Roost, U-turn, or Toxic, or Brave Bird, or even Taunter, whatever you want to do, and Defog. More especially defensive spread with Dragapult, I personally prefer right now, but to each their own. You can, of course, go physically defensive to help with things like Excadrill as well, and Rillaboom as well. But regardless of that, it always has to run Boots as it's Stealth Rock weak, so it's just a given. And the same can be said for Rotom Heat and Mantine as well. Rotom Heat can run Defog or Nasty Plot utility sets, but both of them much appreciate having Heavy Duty Boots in hand, as it lets it switch in repeatedly and not mind Stealth Rock, which is what held it back from being OU in prior generations like last generation, Generation 6 to begin with, I'd say. And in addition to that, we also have Mantine, which, again, its sole viability stems from having Heavy Duty Boots to negate the Stealth Rock weakness and be a Defogger / Volcarona check / water immunity that helps against things like rain as well. So, yeah, it's still pretty limited, all things considered, but Mantine being made viable due to Heavy Duty Boots is pretty cool. And finally, on the defensive end, we also have Slowbro, which is able to use Future Sight plus Teleport to be a great pivot that also can threaten things, as now it has access to Teleport, which, well, it had access to it always, but now Teleport gets negative priority, which is great for pivoting. However, it is also able to pivot much better due to the fact that it's heavy duty boost, which means that it could come in and take that regenerator health. It can come out just really easily, even if it's burnt, even if it's taking, weak scalds or, resisted hits or very weak U-turns, and just gain health as a net because it has heavy duty boost equipped. Of course, it's very likely to get knocked off by things like Tox effects or even Mandibuzz running knockoff or Ferrothorn, whatever it might be, but that's okay. Heavy duty boots is great in the short term at the very least. So yeah, these are 6 defensive heavy duty boots users. As you see, they use more for pivoting and checking things, as opposed to the offensive users using it to enable sweeps or get kills or break through specific cores. However, there are some fringe options that comprises some more offensive options like Weavile and Chandelure, as well as defensive options like Slowking, Colossal, and Incineroar. So let's go through these options as well. Weavile is not very good in OU right now, unfortunately, and when it is used, you seem to use choice items like Choice Band or boosting items like Life Orb on it more often. However, it's still viable with heavy duty boosts, in particular with Swords Dance. Unfortunately, that struggles to break things like Corviknight and Tox effects in the physical defensive end, which in particular can run Haze and then make it so that once a +2 knock is eaten, you're not going to really be broken through it whatsoever. But it's still viable, especially in more offensive teams. Chandelure prefers a choice spec set, but we did see a utility set with heavy duty boots a bit more in the World Cup Pokemon. In particular, Luthor used it in his victorious game against Pogus, which was a really cool showing in my opinion. Beyond that, Slowking can function just like Slowbro as a pivot, but it's more specially defensive. I don't love it right now, I don't think it's the best, but without Pursuit being in the metagame, it's definitely a viable option. In addition to that, Talonflame, Colossal, and Incineroar are 3 utility/defensive oriented fire types, which all can use heavy duty boots to bolster their viability in the metagame. Talonflame is more of a niche pick. Again, we saw it a couple times in World Cup. It's really cool against things like Rillaboom, Hippowdon lacking Toxic or Rock Slide, so really Whirlwind, Hippowdon, I don't know why I listed that, Clefable that lacks Thunderbolt, and a couple other options as well. Colossal is a niche hazard setter. We've seen it on some hyper offensive teams in the ladder. It's great against things like Volcarona, and it also just has a nice set of practical resistances and immunities, which is cool. However, you can run Flame Body on it as well for other things, which can help punish things like U-turn being used. So yeah, access to hazards and rapid spin. Again, it's a very practical Pokemon, but it doesn't really fit onto many teams, so definitely be careful there. I'd say it's like fringe viable. And same for Incineroar, which was pretty good in the pre-DLC metagame due to checking Kyurem, Aegislash, Dragapult, Gengar, etc. But now, while those Pokemon are common, it's just a bit less effective. Knocks it out and about. So many things wall it and invalidate it. It's really just pivoting in and out a couple times, and that's it. So I wouldn't advise using it, but if you were to, it definitely takes advantage of heavy duty boots as well, which makes it more accessible. So yeah, all things considered, these are some Pokemon that can use heavy duty boots in the SSC metagame. I'm curious as to what you guys think about them. I'm curious to see if you guys think they're good, bad, if you think boots are good or bad for the game, and so much more. So definitely let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Finally, guys, be sure to check out Jambad's book. If you guys click the link in the description, I'll actually get a cut of what you guys are doing with it. In addition, it's just an amazing resource. I can't begin to say how much I can praise this book. I read through it myself a couple weeks back, and it was really insightful, and I feel like I'm even getting better at the game, and you guys definitely can too. So if you're gonna invest some time into reading that book, getting better at the game, and just kind of giving back, then definitely check out Jambad's book. And finally, guys, we're getting close to 5,000 subscribers, so if you could hit that subscriber button, if you're one of the 35 to 40% of the people that watch these videos regularly that are not subscribed, that would mean the world to me. So yeah, subscribe and be sure to like and comment as well. Have a great day. Let me know what you think of the quality of this. It's a new computer. So yeah, anyway, that's Finch. Peace out, guys.